Everybody's got a story, you just have to listen. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this is Good Listening. This week we are going to the dogs. If you follow me on social media, you're more than likely have seen a post about my dog. That's pretty much all I do on Instagram and TikTok. It's just talk about my dog. But I wanted to do an episode about dogs and dog brains. So I found Billie Groom, who's a world-renowned dog psychotherapist, and I want to just find out more about dog psychology and, what they think and how they do and how they're trained. And she's come up with an incredible new way of training dogs that's much different than we're all used to. And we're going to get into that. We're also going to find out how she got into this and if she can help me with my dog, Nathan. Billie Groom, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Joe. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. And I see your dog's roaming around the background. Mine is laying at my feet as he usually is. He's my coworker. I'd say he's the world's laziest coworker. But I want to start there with my love of dogs. I am a reformed dog lover, and I have perfectly good reason for it, Billie. So growing up, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, my family had a little dog, I think it was one of those straight out of the dog pound. It was a little scrappy little puppy. We called him Nay. And when I was about 4 or 5, Nay ran off out of our backyard, was hit by a car, and died, unfortunately. And at that point, my father was definitely one of these people that handled everything with extremes. So if something bad happened in one thing, we'd never do that again. Like one time I was a little kid and I was in Spain in the Atlantic Ocean, and I tipped a boat over to make it look like I was drowning. And my dad said, never do that again. He shred the raft up. So for the dog, he said, never again. We are never having another dog again because it was too upsetting for the family. So fast forward, it's my adult life. I've got a very busy career, so having a dog's not a priority. And then my niece gets a dog, a little dachshund Yorkie mix, a Dorkie called Coco. And I started getting used to having a dog around. And then finally, my wife and I had sort of settled into our lives, and we weren't so busy with the hustle and bustle of New York City. And we're like, let's just go get a dog. And we've always loved dachshunds. So we got this dachshund about 3 years ago. His name is Nathan, and it's changed our life. And he's my best friend. He sleeps with us. He eats with us. He does everything with us. So I just want to give you context in terms of I was never one of these people when I would see a dog, I'm like, oh my God, so cute. Now I'm a complete opposite. And when they say people can't change, yes, they can change because I am all in on dogs. So let's start with you in terms of your love of dogs. Where did it begin with you?
That's an interesting question because it wasn't that much different than yourself. People assume that, I was raised with dogs and all this. I really wasn't. I had a dog when I was little. We had a baby, had a little black lab who, my parents said, oh, he went to a farm, but I think he just died of old age. And then we didn't have a dog after that. I somehow got into, at a very, my I guess late teens, early 20s, got very interested. And I guess I had always gravitated to them as a child, but I really didn't understand why I had this very different and personal career path. Well, it turned into a career path. It was intended to just be animal welfare and learning why dogs were so challenging in that adolescent stage and understand why they were euthanized and surrendered so much and why rescues were having a hard time with them. And one thing led to another. And I unintentionally became a behaviorist because I discovered a method of working with them after rescuing hundreds and hundreds of dogs and working with them. I mean, I'm almost 60, and that happened in 2019, and I'd been doing this for almost 4 decades. So it was almost a backwards career where I just kept going through and do what I do, and then I learned as I went through my journey why I did what I did and what I was doing and what my method was and why it was so challenging to bring it into the industry. So I sort of learned more about myself later.
Wow, that's so cool. That's great. And I think one of the things is, I joke that no one could change. I think people can change, but we evolve. And that was, it seemed like a natural evolution for you. And one thing that I noticed, again, I think later in life, when you become a dog lover, it's I think it might be more helpful because you're able to process information. Because I remember the first time we took Nathan to the vet, and we would ask him behavioral questions. They're like, "Oh yeah, we don't do that. Like we don't want to get involved. Like we know Nathan's a picky eater. Yeah. I don't know. Mix up. Like vets have their role, which is like the insides of the dog, but they want nothing to do with behavior issues, and that's why people like yourself exist in this world. And it's funny. So when we got Nathan, the first thing we want to do is get trained because we got him at like 3 months old. And I mentioned this other dog, Coco. Coco was never trained, is a bit wild, doesn't like a lot of humans. So we're like, let's do the right thing. Let's get dog training, and we'll make sure that Nathan is brought up right. So I asked the vet, can he suggest a trainer? And he said, oh, this person's wonderful, blah, blah, blah. So I've reached out to them, and I was living in an affluent part of South Carolina at the time. And they said, okay, great. Yes, we will come in, but the thing is you have to pay for a $125 consultation, and then you can sign up for training. And I'm like, well, okay. And this is all new to me. I'm like, all right, I guess this is the way it is. I mean, highly recommended by the vet. I'm not going to question the vet. So the woman comes in, and she comes with a bunch of cat toys, and it basically is like a 90-minute conversation telling me how dogs love cat toys and they're really hard to potty train. Like that's what I paid like $125 for. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is what and I said, well, what's the next step? Well, now that we've had this constellation, now you can sign up for classes. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So I essentially said, I'm going to go what everyone else does and just go into a deep YouTube rabbit hole and learn as much as I can about dog training. And then eventually we signed up for a local, like one of those Pet Smart classes where they teach like some sort of like very introductory obedience. But it is amazing. The one thing that I learned along this path though, Billy, was, and I'm sure you know this better than I is, when you take a dog for training, you're not training the dog. You're really more training the human, aren't you?
Yes, and what I heard, what I resonated with your story is that pet parents, in my experience, are more inclined to go find what they want, to go look, to say, no, that isn't working for me. Whereas trainers in the industry tend to be more brainwashed by the industry, told what they have to do, what courses they have to do. The industry is led by uh, businesses that sell conditioning methods, so certifications in conditioning methods, and saying this is what you have to do. And it's divided the industry on you have to do this type of conditioning method or this type or this. And it creates this division where trainers feel like they have to align with this, and they tend to be very funneled. Whereas pet parents, if something's not working, they'll reach out and find what they like, which is why I unintentionally became a behaviorist, but I use a completely different method than what is. No, I didn't take those classes. I learned from dogs. And I use cognitive behavioral therapy, which I didn't learn until 2019, instead of conditioning. But it's so interesting to hear you say that you just made that, even though the vet said, this is the trainer to go with, you used your own logic. And I find pet parents, they don't have an allegiance to an industry leader or a method or a trainer. They just want what's best for their dog and themselves and what suits them. And, I think pet parents get shit on a lot. You're not patient enough. You're not this, you're not that. I think a lot of them are like yourself. They really do try.
So now I'm not a bright person, Billy. So if make this easy as possible for me, what's the differentiator in your method of canine psychotherapy? What are some of someone like me could understand? Because you obviously have a lot more experience and know more about this. But what are some of the simple differences that you offer with your therapy?
Okay, so good question. And it can actually be quite a simple answer. Conditioning methods are designed to use reactive reinforcements to encourage and discourage a behavior. So they're great for puppies, for teaching basic commands, for teaching right from wrong, like house training, right? The dog pees inside, no bad dog. I mean, there's different ways. Dog pees outside, give a treat, yay. It works really well. It works on a reactive basis, and you're just encouraging good thought patterns and quote unquote good behaviors.
And you're saying that's good for
Yeah.
dogs up to 6 months. Okay.
Yeah, and it works with dogs older, but what happens is when they do get a little bit older, they get a little bit like children where what happens if I don't do that? I know right from wrong, but I don't necessarily want to do it. Or they've lived on the street and they know what works for them. And so encouraging them and discourage, they're like, nah. So you have to approach things totally differently. So cognitive behavioral therapy is more. It sounds so serious, and but
Yeah.
it's actually really cool. It's a very flexible and. But what it does is it works more with allowing them to process and make decisions. And then from there, they're going to change their behavior based on, I don't really need to do that. Or I do, I can make decisions and choices. And my person understands what's important to me. And my person, so we do exercises, it's proactive, not reactive in nature. So we do exercises that allow the brain to stop and process. Because a lot of what's happening is the brain just goes into very quick reactive, like a kid. I know I shouldn't hop out the bedroom window and steal my mom's car, but I really want to go to this party. Boom, I'm doing it, right? No thought process, nothing, right? So what we want to do is practice on getting that brain to stop and process and make decisions. And so the goal of CBT is to really work with the emotions that's driving the behavior, not teaching behavior. So conditioning teaches behavior. CBT comes at it where they already possibly know right from wrong, or if they don't, there's a reason why they think they need to do another behavior. So with humans, you get a lot with habits. So they use CBT a lot for quitting smoking, overeating. So there's a big difference between someone that just doesn't know an apple is better than a bag of potato chips versus someone who does, but they're eating the bag of potato chips because their brain just goes there and they just feel they need it. And so we in the human world use different approaches to help them through that. It's a big difference. So we really need all of these methods incorporated to be able to use the best one that's best for that dog or human in the stage that they're at.
And the struggle is real for pet parents, especially with puppies. So when we first got Nathan, 3 months old, like I mentioned, still a baby, not potty trained or anything. It took us a solid 3 months to get
Oh.
him to pee outside because he's a dachshund, so he's got the little legs, and he didn't like grass underneath his belly. And you were talking about the traditional methods of rewarding a dog. Well, we couldn't reward him because he wouldn't go outside in the grass. So it was very difficult. So what we found was he did like to go potty in the dog park, which had like artificial surface. So what I ended up doing was I bought a piece of AstroTurf, is what I used to call it, and I put it on my balcony. And then he would finally start to go out on the balcony and pee on the AstroTurf, and then he would come back inside. And then I remember I was reading about the bell method, like if you put a bell by the door, and that would tell him.
It's
But here's the thing, Billy. I bought the bell from Amazon, and by the time he had done all this from learning to go outside, he didn't need the bell. He would just
yeah.
go to the door and be like, "Hey, idiots, open the door so I can get out there." So it was pretty cool. So I understand, like, and
The
that's
bell method isn't a method, it's just a product, but
yeah.
and that's a big thing in the industry too. There's a difference between techniques and methods and just a gimmick and everything else. Oh my gosh, you're going down a huge rabbit hole there. But what's interesting that I wanted to get back to on what you said is logic. Logic should prevail. My first company, my first business was named Dog Logic because everyone said to me, "Your method's so logical. Your approach is so logical." I mean, sometimes it was just like I keep saying, the pet parents tend to work things through because they're not funneled by, you have to do things this way and this is the best way and we have to do it. I love that you did that. I've done that with rescue dogs over and over. I remember getting 2 dogs out of a auto wrecking yard where they were used as guard dogs, but they were treated horribly. So I brought them into my care and I ended up homing them in a great home. And it was a fenced yard. It was all grass. And they ended up calling me and saying they ripped through the door to the basement, went down to the basement and messed down there. And I'm thinking there's always a reason why a dog does a behavior, especially when you're talking mature German shepherds. And I mean, any dog, but really something's going on here. And I was early in my career, but what happened was they were uh, used to going on cement. And they had gone down there with the people because that's where their laundry is. So they knew that cement was down there. It was a cement floor. So, what did we do? Well, just go off to a home store and get cement patio stones, put them outside, and that's where they went. So very similar to what you did, sometimes logic, but it's always important to think about what's the dog's perception? What is the dog thinking? Why is the dog doing this behavior? Not why in the sense of they were traumatized or abused. Why in that moment? That's very CBT. In that moment right there, why does the dog feel like they need to do that behavior to achieve their goal? Right? And if it is not being comfortable with their surrounding or over processing or under processing, or it's just a habit, then we go back and we create these exercises that work in that realm, just like with people, right? If we're just habit driven, then we're going to practice our brain being comfortable, being out of habit, and being comfortable with that at other times. And then when we really need it at our challenging times, we know where to go. What CBT does for canines is create those exercises that does that in the dog's brain.
So my dog Nathan, I jokingly say to my wife, he's schizophrenic because at night when we're watching TV, he will fall asleep with between me and my wife while we're watching something, and then he will wake up angry. And then like within 30 seconds, he's licking my face. That's why I joke about schizophrenia. What would make a dog wake up angry?
People wake up angry. People are not morning people, right? It takes a bit. They're tired, they wake up, maybe something on the TV or you got woken up unexpectedly or just popped out. People do the same thing, and then they realize, "Oh, wait, I'm actually happy. I love these people. Oh, wait, I'm on the couch. This is cool." And then there you've got your processing, right? They sort of stop. What he did was self-process. He induced his initial reaction was, "I'm gonna be, oh, wait, actually, this is pretty good." People do the same thing. But
Interesting.
that
Okay.
so he's self-implementing CBT actually, and dogs do it themselves. So that's why it's so, interesting to work with dogs because they get it faster than the people because 'cause they're most of the time already doing it.
Is there any way I can make my dog not wake up angry? Or would that be having to take him to like a CBT training kind of thing? Because I worry because I don't want him like waking up one night, like biting me because he doesn't know who I am. And then all of a sudden be like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, he sounds like he's self-regulating on his own, but yes, and people do call me for that. It's like the dog suddenly goes into red zone, just does a behavior, and then afterwards, "Oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that, and I'm sorry," which is interesting because I just had a conversation, with somebody at a university that heads a behavioral and we talked about this yesterday on can dogs feel guilt? Do they know they did a wrong behavior? Can they feel guilt? And yes, they can. Puppies, not so much because they don't even really know right from wrong. We're still teaching it to them, right? Uh, eh, but um, but dogs, they can. But if it got to a point where that happened, or it was very long process and the dog was uncomfortable and anxious, then yes, we could. That's a good question because of whether it's habit. That one would be lack of processing. So we would create exercises that induce that processing faster. You would know how to do that. So as soon as Nathan woke up, you would very quickly pop into one of the exercises that induce processing and it would be faster. So he wouldn't have to go through that whole process himself, which is what decreases anxiety. So, yes, in the situation you're in, probably someone wouldn't call on that,
Yeah.
but
No, and like I said, we've actually developed our own system where basically when it's time for us to get up and go to bed at night, we'll be like, "Hey, Nate, we're going," and hey, if you want to work, yeah, if you want to come to bed with us, you're more than welcome to, but we're not going to bother you right now. So yeah, that's funny. All right, so Nathan is a dachshund, and like if you Google dachshund, like the first thing that'll say is stubborn. And I want to get into the breeds. Is breeds play a factor in CBT and cognitive behavioral therapy? Like, are some dogs harder or easier to train when it comes to behavior?
No, you have to find the right method. Once you find the right method, they all can. I think that is where the stumbling block or the block is in the industry, where they come up with things, oh, the adolescent stage is hard, or this breed is hard and you can't do it. Well, when you switch your method to suit the dog and what's going on and suit the situation and the environment and the reason for the behavior, the dog's perception, age, a number of factors, and then you get it right. It's not a matter of being right, it's a matter of getting it right. So you don't want to stick with one, you want to find, and that can be one of the factors, can be breed, but you don't want to get too caught up in breed either, because as soon as you say, for me, as soon as I say a certain breed is a certain way, well, then I'll run into a dog of that breed the next day that doesn't align with that at all. But we can say things such as dogs that are job dogs, uh, such as, or cask-driven dogs, such as maybe border collies or, um, you know, Australian shepherds, things along those lines. They like to have everything be as it should be. They like to manage their surroundings and their situation and funnel people. So if they're doing a behavior, it might be a different reason. It might be the same behavior. They might be biting or reacting or snapping. A dog of a completely different breed might be doing the same behavior, but that could be for a totally different reason. Not because they're trying to manage their situation, but because they're fearful or they're anxious, or they've learned that works in their favor. They've learned that if they snap and bark out, that it keeps people at bay. There could be a number. So once we recognize, and we can even start working with them and doing these exercises. If we don't know the reason, we start the exercises. Same with people. You just start working together and things develop, and then, okay. So it's not so much assessing everything. This is right, this is wrong, this is good behavior, bad behavior. It's implementing exercises and analyzing the changes and what's happening and learning more about the dog and continuing to progress. It's it's really neat, because there's really essentially no right or wrong, which is funny because people say, yeah, I know, Billy, biting is wrong. And that's true, but we just need to get those exercises right, and it works.
My wife is incredibly jealous of the relationship I have with my dog, Nathan. Nathan will, at any point, if he's near my face, will lick it off. What does it mean when a dog relentlessly wants to lick your face?
They love you. And he probably knows that you love him and that it gets him pats and gets him attention. And, I wouldn't say that he loves your wife any less. I would say just differently, and shows it differently.
Okay, good. So there's not no rift between the two of them. It's just that I'm the cool dad, so he probably just loves licking my face.
He knows what he can get away with and what's going to work in his favor. We all do that, don't we? If we know something's going to work in our favor, we're going to do it.
Awesome. Her name is Billie Groom. Billie, if folks wanted to find out more about you, connect with you, where should they start?
Well, LinkedIn is Billie Groom, and Facebook is Institute of Canine Psychotherapy. But you can also email or just reach out, and I appreciate everyone's interest. And I'd love to hear people's stories. And just reach out. Thanks so much. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Billie, thanks so much for the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Take care, Joe.
And that'll do it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it. If you want to connect with me, go to joepardavila.com. You can find all my socials there. You can send me an email, and you can look up past blogs and episodes there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that big old thumbs up button. It's a small gesture, but it really helps my channel. And if you're on Apple or Spotify, a 5-star review would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again. I will see you next time. Adios.